we have 5 presenters in this session. So each presenter will have 10 minutes for doing their presentations. And meanwhile, if audience members have any questions, they can type their questions in the chat box, and we will address those questions later. So the first presenter of this session is Dr. Zulfia Sakhiya. She is a lecturer and researcher at the Department of English, Universitas Negeri Semarang, from Indonesia. She is going to speak on Can Linguistic Landscape Revive Indigenous Languages? So I welcome Dr. Sakhiya to do her presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Pratusha. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, right, thank you. Before I wait, I think I have prepared a slide. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see the slides now?
Not yet. It's coming. Yes.
Oh, okay. Is it there?
No, it's not yet, but no, it's starting.
Okay then. I'll try once again.
Sure.
Is it there? If not, then I'll just I don't use my slides. I only have 10 minutes, right?
Yes, you get 10 minutes.
Okay, then let's just forget the slides. I'll just present the ideas. So thank you so much for the opportunities given. My presentation here is entitled Can Linguistic Landscape Revive Indigenous Languages? So this presentation is going to explore the relationship between linguistic landscape and the conservation of indigenous or local languages. And the argument central to my presentation is that linguistic landscape is a powerful tool to create and negotiate language policy, and therefore could potentially be used to revive the threatened languages. And before we start, maybe I need to explain a little bit about Indonesia. So we will share common knowledge about Indonesia if you haven't visited the country, or if you haven't learned about the country. So Indonesia is, like India, is an archipelagic country with more than 17,000 islands stretching across the equator between and comparable to India's rich in cultural diversity. Indonesia have their own distinctive and unique cultures, customs, and it is a country which is blessed with more than 700. However, despite this remarkable language diversity, Indonesia is in favor of monolingualism. So over the domination of certain languages which have serious impact. As a matter of fact, even Indonesia is battling against this threat of out of the 700 recorded languages, 100 indigenous languages have been endangered. 1998 of those languages, 8 languages are nearly extinct, and 12 languages are already extinct. This is the data according to the database in Ethnologue 2016. And in my presentation, I will focus on Javanese language as one example of the threatened indigenous language and explore how linguistic landscape could potentially be used to conserve the threatened languages. Javanese, as one of the most spoken indigenous languages, with the speakers around 80 million speakers, is also categorized as at risk of extinction. It is even predicted that Javanese will be extinct in 20 or 30 years if it is still at risk now. The dramatic decrease in the use of Javanese can be traced back to the predominance of the national language in public spaces. And however, the increasing visibility of Javanese language in public spaces, which can be recorded through linguistic landscape, show there is an attempt of indigenous language conservation. So languages cannot just die or simply vanish, of course, because they are not living organism. So what contributes to their extinction doesn't only that, it also runs the risk of losing the wealth of human knowledge. That is the indigenous knowledge that is within the languages. These languages, as the previous speakers have emphasized, they have no written forms because they are based on orality. Thus, they are vulnerable to loss and being forgotten. Relevant factors that led to this threat to linguistic loss are such as inactive intergenerational transmission, reduction in domains of use, low research and initiatives in studying indigenous languages and their linguistic maintenance, and of course, internal factors such as attitudes and choices of the speakers in using the language. In urban areas, for example, like Jakarta, the intergenerational linguistic shift from the local language to Bahasa Indonesia, Indonesian national language, primarily occurred during the New Order era, around 1980s up to 1990s. So during those periods, many Indonesians from other islands and regions in Indonesia migrated to Jakarta, the capital city, and its surrounding satellite cities such as Depok, Bekasi, Tangerang, for economic purposes, for survival. And these parents became the first generations in the new land, while other aspects contributing to the indigenous language loss, most of them failed to maintain their mother tongue and spoke primarily in Bahasa Indonesia. That's the pragmatic choice to do, for the sake of communicability and intelligibility with other peers. Consequently, the second generations growing up in this environment no longer speak their parents' first language or the regional language where their parents are from. In addition, since Indonesia gained its independence in 1945, the national constitution has only mentioned and secured Bahasa Indonesia as the national language. The national constitution in 1945 reads, the national language is Bahasa Indonesia. The implication of this official status of the national language is that Bahasa Indonesia functions as a symbol of nationhood, of course, and as embodiment of national identity, as a means to unify the diverse ethnicities and communities, and an instrument for cross-cultural communication. Bahasa Indonesia also functions as the official language, which it serves as the official state language, the medium of instruction in schools, universities, and other educational institutions, the official language at the national level in social and government affairs, and the official language for development of culture and the use of science and technology. So this monolingualism has implication on harms in indigenous language, and one of which is Javanese. But then, as I have explained before, through the linguistic landscape study, we recorded there is a science or an attempt to revival the indigenous language. To explain this phenomena, we use linguistic landscape. We use data that have been collected through signage, street signs, billboards and written message in public spaces into big cities in central Java, in Semarang and Yogyakarta, where Javanese is mainly spoken. The visibility of both Javanese and Bahasa Indonesia, or the national language, in the government billboards and building plaques demonstrates how Semarang and Yogyakarta, as the regional governments of both regions, revive Javanese language in public spaces through signage. So, in other words, from our linguistic landscape study, reviving indigenous languages maintain the language through the government billboards and building plaques or signs. Javanese is made visible, although it might be accompanied by Bahasa Indonesia, the national language. Still, there is this attempt to revive the language into public spaces. I actually have put some pictures of this to illustrate this emergence of, or the revivalism of the indigenous language, but unfortunately, I don't know why, some technical issue. But I will share my slides later, maybe to the Comorin, so you will see. So again, what I would like to emphasize is that linguistic landscape has that kind of potential, and it is such a powerful tool to create and negotiate. Therefore, could potentially be used to revive the threatened indigenous. Thank you. I return the time back to the or maybe you've got any questions? Hello, Pratusha. Ms.
Yeah, hello.
Pratusha?
Oh, it was muted. Sorry. Thank you.
It's 10 minutes already, I guess. So
Dr.
I return the time back to the moderator.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yeah.
Maybe we can take the questions later.
Yes, please.
After we are done with all the presentation. Is it fine, Dr. Sakhiya?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for yeah. Thank you for maintaining that. Dr. Are you Dr. Haloi?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you please make your presentation? You have 10 minutes of time.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, ma'am. My paper is on the topic ecological awareness in ancient India, a study with special reference to the sacred writings of India. At present time, the environmental problems have become the topic of discussion everywhere, be it village or parliament. Due to ecological imbalance, people are facing new problems day by day. A troubled ecological balance is threatening the whole world. So ecological awareness has become a subject of great importance. The same way, people of society are understanding the existence of the whole world may change because of imbalanced environment. But it does not mean that ecological awareness is a subject of present time. The ancient Indian sacred writings give ample references to the ecological awareness of ancient people. In Indian writings, right from the Vedas, epics, Puranas, myths, etc., we find many references to ecological thought. The study of the relations of organisms to one another, to their surroundings, is included in a special branch of biology. which is named as ecology. But in ancient Indian writings, we do not find the word ecology. In the Rig Veda, we find the word okos having the meaning shelter. Again, the Atharva Veda too mentions the word okos, and it has the meaning a house or place. The following verse says it, Ayam Agni Ramuduha Yani Sitani Bukridi Bibu Thamatu Kasaha Prabhu Thamatu Sarvataha. The term ecology is created from the Greek words, namely oikos, having a meaning home or house, and logos, that is study. Thus, the word ecology implies the study of home or house with its surroundings. The eminent ecologist Ernest Haeckel has defined ecology as the science of treating reciprocal relations of organisms and external world. Afterwards, with a little modification, the word ecology was substituted by the term ecology. To say about the sacred writings of ancient India, first of all, we have to mention the Vedas or the Vedic texts. Vedas are the revealed text to the seers. The ancient Indian seers or the ancestor of the age of the Vedas, Upanishads, the composer of the Puranas and the Smriti Shastras, pointed out to the necessity of a harmonious relationship between human beings and the entire environment. If we look into the ancient Indian literature right from the Rig Vedic period, we find that ancient people maintain a good relationship with the natural elements. The concept of Panchabhutas, that is five elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, has already been referred to almost in all the Indian writings. Ancient people paid attention on the preservation of essential components of nature for the welfare of all living existences. They treated them as their parents. They had as if personified and deified to these natural elements and had treated them as their own family members. The following verse of the Rig Veda is a glaring example of such relationship. Sa naha piteva sunoveagne supayano bhava sasasa naha swastaye. Here, Agni, that is fire god, is praised to play the role of a father for the sacrificers. Fire, as a form of energy, is present in movable and immovable natural entities. The sun is said to be the soul of the whole universe. Plants produce food on the earth using sunlight as the fuel, and living beings survive by eating these foods or plant products. Without earth, it will not be possible. So, in the Atharva Veda, the earth has been glorified as the mother of all, and we all her sons. The Prithvi Sukta of the Atharva Veda says that Mata Bhowmick Putraham Prithibhyaha. Such heartfelt respect of the seer towards the Mother Earth is felt throughout a hymn of 63 verses. In the Rig Veda, the earth is mostly addressed along with the heaven in dual form, like Rodosi, Deva Prithvi, etc. The Rig Veda glorifies the earth and heaven thus. Heaven is my father, brother atmosphere is my navel, and the great earth is my mother. The earth holds all human beings, and so the Satavatra Brahmana says that Mata Dhenur Mate Vyang Manusyan Devate. Water, the vital natural element, is very essential for the living. The water is a human environment, and the is uh, that is black and some. The concept of water was held in high esteem in ancient India. In the Atharva Veda, water has been glorified as mother, Apu Osman Mataraha. Again, water is praised to be killer of all evil powers or germs, medicine for all, destroyer of the diseases. It is said that Apo it ba'u bhesojirapo omipo satonihi Apo vishwasa bhesoj asti krinnant bhesajam. Water is the soul of all living beings. Without water, the earth cannot be prosperous. If the earth does not produce food, no one can survive in the world. So, in order to bring rainfall to the earth, Vedic people perform sacrifices. They believe that if one performs sacrifice in the earth, then it will satisfy the gods who are living in the upper region, that is, in the heaven. Being satisfied, they will bestow their blessings in the form of rain. Whenever one performs sacrifice, goes to the and in the in Manusmriti, also Manu expresses same view in the following way. Agno prastahutihi saimak adittam upatisthate adittat jastiranam talhajaha. Again, as stated in the Sutta of the Brahmana, water is the foundation of all, and water has the power to purify one, because water is considered to be pure. Environment includes animals, birds, trees, shrubs, herbs, etc. All these elements and entities of nature have been revered by people of India immemorial. Ancient people showed respect for nature in the same way as they showed reverence to gods and goddesses. Ancient people were aware of the well-being of nature. They advocated in the Bhajani Samhita, there is a reference where seeking prosperity of the trees, that is Vanaspati, Usodi, and their flower and fruits, etc. Oblations are offered thus. Mulibhyah Saha, Sahibhyah Saha, Vanaspatibhyah Saha, Pushpebhyah Saha, Phalebhyah Saha, Osodibhyah Saha. In the ritualistic religion of the Vedas, trees play a significant role. In the sacred texts, mainly in the Vedas, we have references of various sacrificial trees like Asatha, Khadira, Bilva, Bikankata, Palasa, etc. After having cut the trees along with their branches in a ritualistic procedure, these were used in different sacrificial purposes. But it does not mean the destruction of forests. Ancient people were fully aware of the protection of the forest. Hence, after cutting the trees, they offered oblation on the trunk of the tree, which is still raised on the earth. They did it in order to come out another plant from the head. Moreover, for the sacrificial purpose, they selected such a tree which was not the trees or paper. They the cattle. All these differences are equal awareness foundation ancient people for the protection of environment. The worship of trees is an ancient Indian custom which has been kept alive up to the present day. We have references in the Rig Veda where God Indra is praised to separate the trees from the forest and the sons from their fathers. In the same way, one God is prayed not to uproot the trees. The Shiva Purana gives trees the status of a son. Again, in a Matsya Purana, it is said that 10 trees are equal to one son and 10 sons are equal to one tree. Dasa Druma Samaputraha, Dasa Putra Samadrumaha. Ancient people prevented felling of trees without reason by levying various punishments on the defaulters. Monu states execution of Vedic mantras in order to be pure when one cuts down herbs. In the chapter known as Vrikshayurveda of Agni Purana and Brihat Samhita of Varahamihira has been dealt with a scientific way of plantation of different trees. Here, different measurements among the trees and different directions have been given. People through the ages have assigned religious or respectful status to various animals and birds, from the teeny mouse to the mighty lion. Hence, prayer of folk is also available in the Rig Veda. In order to pay respect and save the animals, Vedic people deified the animals. The deification of the animal is not important, but their purpose behind it is significant. Their main aim was to prevent men from doing harm or disrespect towards the animals. Vedic people perform sacrifices in order to attain animal. In the mantra of the mantra, which of Vedic people towards the animal. In this mantra, prayer is done to protect the animals of the sacrificer. Yajamanasya Purushan Pahi. In animal sacrifices, Vedic people direct sacrificial animals following a peculiar varna. They believe according to sacred text, it is easiest way to attain heaven for the animal skill. The animal attains the closeness with the deity to whom the animal is offered. Yogiraj is or Peter Porisoy quote a Vedic line thus: Nova u etan mriyase norishasi deva idesi pothivi sukevi. Mono supports Buddhas. Joyki Badhu Abadaha. In the days of Arthashastra, a fine was levied on one indulging in entrapping, killing, or molesting fishes and birds. The fine was
Sorry for
doubled if
interrupting,
animals
Dr.
were
Halloy.
involved.
Can you wind up in 2
Okay, ma'am.
minutes? Yes.
Okay, I am going to conclude. Air is
Yes.
another important element of our environment, which taken care of by the ancient people of India. In the sacred writings of Hindus, that is in the Vedas, air has been praised as God and is asked to become so pure that no impure things will dare to enter the atmosphere. In that Thus, from the foregoing discussion of the sacred writings of the Hindus, we have seen that attitude of ancient people of India towards nature was never dominating. A man was never treated himself as a supreme being. People were aware of the fact that their prosperity was totally dependent upon the natural elements that surrounded them. They had full knowledge about ecology or ecological balance. People of ancient time understood that the world is directed by its own principle of reason, and everything in it has a rational purpose. Plants exist for the sake of animals, animals for the sake of mankind, and mankind exists to contemplate and imitate the perfection of the world. Since the time of the Rig Veda, Indians showed respect, tolerance towards the natural elements as deities and thus preserve the natural resources without disturbing them. They often treated the essential natural elements as their guardians and established a harmonious relationship with the components of environments. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Haloy, for your presentation. Let's go on to the next presentation. We have Garima Barwa. She is an MPhil scholar from the Department of English, University of New Delhi, India. So I welcome Garima Barwa to make her presentation.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Garima Barwa, and the title for my presentation is Caste in Assam, Understanding Humiliation and Resistance. Before starting, I would like to present my slides. Please let me know if it's visible. Hello, is it visible?
No, not yet. Yeah, it's starting.
Okay, is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I'll start my presentation by keeping in mind the time constraint. I'll limit my presentation to a few key points that emerge when trying to understand caste, humiliation, and resistance, repositioning Assam as a region. The understanding of caste in Assam as compared to the rest of India is significantly different. Geographical location, racial distinctions, a unique and unstable population of varied religious and cultural beliefs, tribe, caste, dichotomy, etc. are some of the factors contributing to this difference. Northeast India is better connected to international countries than it is to the rest of India. It is connected to the rest of India via the narrow Siliguri corridor in West Bengal, also nicknamed as chicken snake due to its appearance. Owing to huge influx of immigrants of varied racial and religious features, this region gradually acquired and admixtured unique traits in its physicality, socio-cultural, political, economic, and religious scenarios. These factors have also been causes of discrimination against the people of this region. However, there is an urgent need to understand the changing definition of identity articulated between spaces, which goes beyond the territorial understanding of the frontier and the state. The seeping of an orthodox form of Hinduism slowly but gradually transformed and shaped the present scenario of Assam. The inclusion of indigenous tribes of Assam into the hierarchical caste structure is a key contribution to many conflicts and movements in Assam. However, with the arrival of the British and East India Company in the region, the formation of a national ideology followed by a subnational one rapidly took shape. Northeast region came to be recognized as a panhandle of India following exhibition of subnational consciousness and distinct geographical and political administrative unit. The focus then shifted to regionalism, linguistic and cultural identity, problems of immigrants and insurgency, spatial location, class, gender, race, Assam's lagging economy, in spite of presence of abundant natural resources, etc., add multiple layers of nuances to these issues. In all this, caste was pushed to the margins and denied apparent visibility. While this might come off as a good thing to objective and outside observers, the shadow of caste is in fact deeply ingrained in the Assamese society, and the shift of focus only enables it to function silently and invisibly underneath. Generally understood as a closed vertical system of stratification, that constantly broadens itself horizontally. Caste structure is rather inclusive and fluid in the sense that it constantly and simultaneously changes and rearranges its parameters, borders, making it more accessible. The inclusion of ethnic indigenous tribes in Assam is a case in example. Caste Hindu made itself accessible and attractive by not only laying down beds of superior and inferior cultures, but also by relatively toning down its strict dietary and occupational notions, and by what I say, allowing the tribes to keep their indigenous cultural and religious beliefs without any major changes. However, the However, the foundation of dominance, superior inferior culture made its ground and gave rise to ideologies as that of collective conscience, of that of right and wrong. This idea of collective conscience can be used two ways, both by the dominant and the dominated social groups. A supposedly coherent systematic order of hierarchy ignores the underlying frictions or conflicts. Such a system needs constant legitimization of their claim of justification and the ultimate real. This legitimization comes in the form of what Gramsci calls the senso comune. Literally translated to common sense, it points at an popular or general view of the society, which is more of an instinct than a mere belief, using religion, race, gender differences, etc., to legitimize this idea. An oppressive society secures consent from both the dominant and the dominated groups, that the prevailing social system is right and just and cannot be otherwise. In order to maintain these orders, caste system depends on institutionalized humiliation. Humiliation here should be understood as a negation of basic humanity and dignity, and it is also to be kept in mind that it is not homogeneous. Gopal Guru's theorization of lived experiences is particularly important in understanding the multifaceted heterogeneous instances of humiliation, which, although individual, ultimately becomes the shared we of a collective Dalit consciousness. Humiliation rejects and denies humanity to the oppressed to the point where they internalize it and understand it as a way of life. Any violation of the existing ideologies seen as wrong and unjustified. Guilt, remorse, trauma, etc. are understood as the byproducts of humiliation, which are enabled by the institution of supposed emancipation as that of economy, religion, and education. These very factors also consist a potential of resistance. We have to understand that both humiliation and resistance are critical points in a power relationship. The lived experiences of humiliation, suffering, etc. motivates Dalit narratives and constitutes a form of resistance that attempts to debunk myths and history that rejects or reduces them. Resistance can be understood here as intervening in a concrete reality or absolute historicism to bring about changes. As humiliation can be understood as a claim, resistance too can be understood as the claim to communicate or communication itself. It should not be misunderstood as violent response per se, but rather the resilience and celebration of life by the oppressed groups. Dialogues, folklores, oral and written narratives, memories, etc. all constitute resistance. It includes variants, divines, and is non-conforming to any stagnant ideal. These instances of resistance with a contextual pedagogy navigates through a hegemonic past and present and destabilizes and dehistoricizes an existing dominant history as the only one. It enables interaction and, in consequence, form consciousness and empowers reflection. In the process, through the chartering of dissent and resistance, one is able to insert themselves in the process of history as catalyst, as a human with choices and power to question, engage in dialogue, and contribute to change, thus creating or making visible a vibrant and dynamic form of socio-cultural history otherwise suppressed. Thank you. This will be the end of my presentation. Hello?
Thank you, Garima, for maintaining the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. So we will move to the next presenter. He is Saises Nayak Dalal from Dr. Danda Vaidya College of Education, Panda, Goa, India.
Yeah.
Of
Good afternoon, ma'am.
village in Goa. So I welcome you to make your presentation.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Are you present?
Yes, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Good
Yes, am I
afternoon.
audible? Yeah. Good afternoon, ma'am. Okay. So, I've shared my
Yeah, good
presentation, and
afternoon.
yeah, I will start now. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. My
Yes,
topic is a
yes,
case study on
yes.
indigenous
Please
education
make
for
your plan.
interdependence.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, and economic sustenance of a village in Goa. So this is a study which is an ongoing study, but part of it is complete. So I am presenting that in front of all. So let me go fast. So the topic, the main core of the study is to find the indigenous education system for interdependence and economic sustenance of a village. Now the village in particular is used because the study was inspired by my friend whose father and grandfather were of a generation who never visited schools. Their entire life, they had only lived upon the skills and the education which they received from their parents and likewise. We are a generation wherein we go to school, we take formal education, we learn things, and then we do a lot of research and everything, just and then get a job. Okay, so our life is mostly rotating around getting a good job and like that. But these are the people who had never been to any school, they have not taken any formal kind of education, yet their children are now teachers and doctors in with good professions like builders, etc. So the study was inspired, I was inspired by this idea, like what kind of education did these people receive and how can it be applied in today's world for the questions like unemployment and sustainability. Okay, so I'll just skip some slides, I'll go a bit quick. The Vedic education system aimed to create a self-sustaining individual who could be his own bread maker, take care of family and also play important role in the societal welfare. The people of Goa, India undertake various traditional occupation, making it a self-sustaining society. Various skills, talents, knowledge and other necessary sustainable practices are hidden in this vast and invaluable indigenous knowledge and education system of the rural villages in Goa. So the study which was conducted on this village, that village has a lot of the people usually don't come out to the market or some other things to sell their goods as such. It is a community which is interdependent and they all are their own provider. They do not go out to buy things from the market, nor do they go out to sell things. That thing has started very recently. But if you consider a time period of up to 2010 or 2011, or even before that, the people would not sell their product outside. They would produce, which was enough for the village to survive. Okay, so that's the aim of the study, is to understand and comprehend the role of indigenous education system which enables interdependence and economic sustenance in the rural villages of Goa. Okay, so we know what is indigenous education system. It is the non-formal education system pre-existing in the society from a time before the modern schooling came into practice. This is an unstructured form of education system rooted to the tradition, culture, occupation, territory, and language of residents. Okay, the geographical location is the most important in what type of education the person will receive. The prime objective of this education system is to train and equip the future generation with the existing knowledge for survival. It is the most basic instinct of, even for when we see the generation of cells, like even the formation of life from one cell to another cell, the aim of the cell is to pass down knowledge. Similarly, the indigenous education system which is being practiced is also aimed at the same thing, where the parent generation passes down the information to the children generation with some addition from experiences that they have encountered in their lifetime. Okay, economic sufficiency. In this study, the economic sufficiency means the ability to be financially capable to bear the costs of living, everyday living, food and other expenses of the people of the remote rural villages. Like these people, as I had said, they don't deal much with money as we do. We just have a salary, we get money, we go and we buy things that we want. But they produce their own things, and then there is a kind of a barter system or the exchange system wherein the people share their own products with each other and the village survives. Okay, so this study was conducted in a village named Sulkarna in Goa. It's a very beautiful village, and the people there are very polite and not tribals as such. They are people who have knowledge about the outside world as well, and their children are now teachers and doctors and builders and architects. But the parent generation and the grandparent generation is still enrooted with their indigenous education and the traditional practices. The study was conducted on 30 people of that village from the age group of 40 to 60. Okay, let's go to the results and findings. It was observed that until the late 90s, the villagers did not have any formal education and survived on the basis of indigenous education. The schools there, even today, there are no schools in that village, and also if you go there, you won't find any network there. So Goa being a very small state, we still have such villages wherein there is no mobile network or no school. The village is a group of 2-3 vados as they call, and all the children from that travel at least 5 to 6 kilometers every day to attend a school, government school, which is there in the closest proximity. The villagers depended entirely on natural resources and sustainable practices for survival. The village practiced community farming and land sharing methods, which is still practiced. No land is any private property as such. All land is cultivated by the villagers together to produce food that is required for them for the entire year. They also have practices like fishing in the sweetwater lakes, then streams which are there. So they have all kinds of occupation. It is a village which is on the hill, on top of a hill. So indigenous education also provides answer to various recent human problems such as unemployment and sustainability. Even though their children are now teachers and doctors and other such professionals, they still find time in their everyday life to go home and cultivate the land which they have. The children generation has not totally given up on the traditional practices, and maintaining their professional careers, they are also making efforts to balance the work that is there of their heredity, like their fathers or their grandfathers, whatever work they were doing, they're still following it. The consumer culture of today's society is the cause of unsustainable development. But if we take a look at this village, they only the village life answers all such issues by focusing on what we need rather than what we want, and also providing for our needs not by working a 10 to 5 job but using the available resources nearby. The lifestyle of these village people is such that they protect their nature so that the needs of the today are met without destroying the needs of tomorrow. They take very good care of their nature and their surrounding, and they keep planting more and more trees wherever there is a space, or there is wherever if a tree falls down, they make sure that a new tree is planted there. And various other practices of sustainability are followed by the villagers. We can say some superstitions also exist, but those superstitions have a lot to do with protecting the nature, and hence those cannot be claimed as superstitions, but they have a good scientific backing to it. The individual roles are important in such a community. In the study, it was seen that the village had specific roles assigned to the villagers, which was their contribution in the community, sustainability, and economic self-sufficiency. So there was no competition, no business competition in that village. One person would not take over the other person's job. Each one had their role specifically clarified to them, clear cut, and that's how they would progress. No one would, like how we see in cities and towns, like if there is one shop doing one business like groceries, there will be another person who will set up a grocery store in very close proximity, just as a competition. But in this village, they strive to live together The villagers' needs for poultry, milk, and other commodities are satisfied by fowl and cattle raised by each family. So they do not go around to shops and buy milk or buy eggs as such. They have their own sources and they take care of pretty well. Caste system to some extent is also seen here with respect to the job undertaken by the person and not any social status as such. Conclusion: Indigenous education has potential to solve unemployment issues, sustainability problems, and environmental issues as well to a huge extent. Living lives imbibed with nature is the only message Indigenous education gives and is also given by great thinkers and philosophers like Rousseau, Gandhi, and poets like William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge and other romanticists. Hence, the indigenous education system has been responsible to make the village self-sustaining by promoting interdependence and individual roles. Thank you. Ma'am, you could kindly take over.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Now we will move to the next presenter. He is Sanjay Rahumetra. He is legal consultant and visiting faculty from Jammu. He is going to present on globalization, a source of ethnocide in indigenous communities in India. So I welcome you to make your presentation. You have 10 minutes time.
Uh,
So
Thank you, Dr. Pratusha. Good afternoon, Chairperson, and all the participants in the International Conference on Indigenous Communities. Globalization, in simplest terms, is the interaction and interconnectedness primarily of economic processes of countries for their social growth. When grown to certain maturity, it may have its social and cultural reflections. The indigenous communities has substantial presence in total population in India. An estimated 104 million indigenous or tribal or ethnic people are living in India, which comprise 8.6% of total Indian population. It's been a fact that the indigenous communities are 3 times more poorer than non-indigenous people of the same surroundings in India. This indicates that the failure of poverty elevation programs of Government of India, if any, has much worse effect on the indigenous communities in India. Adivasi communities are predominant communities in the state of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, West Bengal, and Northeast India. In Chhattisgarh, there is a strong indigenous population presence, and it comes around 80 lakhs. In Jharkhand, also has a tribal population to the tune of 22.6% of the total state's population, and it also comes around 70 lakh. Adivasis in India never had a dislike from the surrounding Hindu population. They were never considered as impure, although they were primitive and uncivilized. Valmiki, who composed Ramayana, his origin as Adivasi has been acknowledged. Adivasi tribes at times enjoy autonomy in social setup. They had full acceptance for the from the surrounding population. They had control over their lands as joint patrimony of the tribe. In some areas, securing Adivasi approval and support was considered crucial by the local rulers, and larger Adivasi groups were able to sustain their own fiefdom in the central India. The Abho kings of Brahmaputra Valley and the Hill Nagas made alliances. The Bhil rebellion of 1632 was part of rebellion against Mughals. Take the Bhil Gond instruction of 1643, that was also against the Mughals. This shows the autonomous existence of tribal people in India. The 14th Conference of Parties to the Convention of Biodiversity held in November 2018 in Egypt broadened the view of role of indigenous people in conservation of biodiversity. Presently, the world's indigenous people, who are only 5% of total global population, protect, conserve, and support in their unique way about 80% of global biodiversity. The importance of tree in the life of man is critically analyzed by scientists, and it has been reported that a tree that lives for 50 years generates 5.3 lakh worth of oxygen, recycles 6.4 lakh of soil fertility, facilitates 6.4 lakh worth of air pollution, provides 5.3 lakh worth of shelter for insects, birds, and animals. Besides, it provides flowers and fruits. Our net loss is worth rupees 33 lakh when a tree falls or is felled. Globalization is an economic plus process, but it has two sides. If one side is shiny, the other side is full of conflicts, common differences, dissimilarities, and discriminations. It is full of exclusions, particularly in the third world. The victims of marginalization, especially the tribal or indigenous communities, are bound to remain at the bottom of globalization. The suffering of these dispossessed indigenous communities is further bound to increase manifold due to number of interconnected factors, including ever-increasing environmental degradation. In the name of development, the life, the livelihood, the culture, and the habitat of indigenous people have brought under the heavy blow of globalization. Cases of displacement of tribal people in India have increased manifold. Commercial activities under the name of economic growth and economic development brought alien forces who command their own culture and interfere into the traditional life and culture of tribal people. The impact of these major economic forces is so huge on the vulnerable indigenous communities that their very existence is put to end. As an aftermath of globalization, land held by tribal communities that could previously not to be occupied by others is now freely given to the non-tribals, including large multinational companies or MNCs. It is estimated that due to construction of over 1,500 major irrigation projects since independence, over 16 million people who were displaced from their villages, of which 40% belong to the tribal population. Involuntary displacement makes their life more miserable and impoverished. Indigenous people continue to suffer the loss of their territories and the resources, the destruction of their culture, and violence directed at their people. Apart from loss of land, life, and lifestyle of generations of tribal communities, displacement causes traumatic psychological and socio-cultural consequences. The tribal belt in India is fully concentrated by industries and mining activities. All the massive steel plants like Balco, Nalco, heavy engineering concerns, etc., are established in the central belt. Most river basin development schemes and hydro projects and the chain of forest-based and ancillary industries are located in this region. Despite the intense industrial activity in central Indian tribal belt, the tribal employment in modern enterprise is negligible. Apart from the provisions of Apprenticeship Act, there is no stipulation for the private or joint sector enterprise to recruit a certain percentage of dispossessed tribals. The tribals are forced to live in acute poverty with traumatic results. They are forced onto the ever-expanding low-paid, insecure, transient, and destitute labor market. About 40% of the tribal of central India supplement their income by participating in the distorted or over the exploitative capitalistic sector. Can these reclusive indigenous tribals ever cope up their nature-dependent sustenance in this exploitative capitalistic environment? Can their social cohesiveness survive in these developments of extreme exploitation? Would the indigenous wisdom of these tribes be conserved when they are being ousted from their own forests or homes? Can these tribes are able to conserve their dialect, their unique way of living? The answer to all these questions is obviously big no. This is ethnocide of indigenous people in India. The threat of displacement and survival to overdevelopment is to all the communities in India. Just like there are endangered species, there are endangered languages, endangered cultures, and endangered ways of lives that risk extinction because of imposition or voluntary subscription of the modern ways of life. The demise of these cultural forms is tragic. It would lead to a less colorful world and also to a permanent obliteration of wisdom and beauty of the traditions. Globalization has allowed cultural exchanges, but it has also homogenized the culture world over. That is why specific and very rare cultural practices from some countries are disappearing. That is why, according to UNESCO, the mix between the benefits of globalization and the protection of local culture's uniqueness requires a very careful approach. The criticism of globalization include inequality in income, disproportional wealth and trades, the benefit that benefits parties differently. In other words, some actors in globalization benefit more from the phenomena while others remain as losers. As a matter of fact, a recent report from Oxfam says that 80% of the total generated wealth goes to 1% of the population of globe. In a capitalist economy, all are not in a position to compete in the market. Some, like tribals and ethnics, who do not have enough education, health, or nutrition, cannot compete and will fall outside the marketplace. Markets cannot become more neutral or competitive uncompetitive unless the playing field is even and the players have equal caliber. Markets are not very friendly to the poorer or to the weak or to the vulnerable. Neither the markets are free. They represent powerful interest groups and they have greatly influenced by the prevailing distribution of income system. Globalization has severely affected the culture of indigenous communities in India. The developmental strategies under liberalization in 1990s has led to the policies which processed a systematic annihilation of the cultural and identity of the tribal people and ethnic groups. The percolation effect of the booming economy may or may not reach among tribal people, but it have definitely put severe stress on their cultural identity crisis. We can still rise above the politics of exclusion and marginalization. The tribal communities are indigenous communities and are part of Indian society, but at the same time, they are different. Special policies and programs are required to address and readdress these differences, especially in context of globalization. When we plan for tribal development, we have to record and be careful about these differences and should take a special note of their situations and capabilities and provide them facilities to develop on the line they want to take. Outsiders cannot develop tribal people, but they can only be facilitators. Indigenous communities can unfold from within only. They have the participation in the development. They must have the participation in the development decisions. Their needs should be transformed in the development programs. The tribal can participate in the development programs only if they are considered to be equal and their unique identities are respected. We can bring these communities to the mainstream and save them from their traditions, and save them and their traditions from the extinction. It is high time that we may amplify the marginalized voices and awaken contemporary nations to realization that only through the optimum growth and
Sorry
establishment,
for interrupting. Please
yes,
wind up in another minute.
only single line rest, of such
Yeah.
democratic, responsible, and environment friendly grassroots tribal traditions, one can create a more equitable and more just and colorful society. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your interesting presentation.
Thank you.
Before we, and I thank all the presenters for their wonderful presentations. This session has been so interesting. We came across so many wonderful ideas and interesting concepts regarding indigeneity and globalization, so on and so forth. So before I take up questions, let me summarize a bit about all the presentations. So the first presentation was done by Dr. Sakhiya. Her paper explored the relationship between linguistic landscape and the conservation of indigenous or local languages. She argued how linguistic landscape can be a powerful tool to create and negotiate language policy, and so how it could be potentially be used to revive the threatened languages. She discussed these issues in the context of Indonesia. She specifically talked about Javanese as one example of the threatened indigenous languages, and examined the decrease in the use of Javanese as a result of the predominance of the national language in public place. She talked about how there is an attempt of indigenous language conservation, and as a result of which there is an increasing visibility of Javanese language in public spaces. To prove her point, she used data such as signage, street signs, billboards, and various other necessary how it's the written messages in public spaces. She talks about two big cities in central Java. So the use of both Javanese and Bahasa in Indonesia, if I'm correct, in the government billboards and signs in these two cities. She talks about two cities, Semarang and Yogyakarta, if I'm pronouncing correctly, prove this point. So this is what she presented. Next, Dr. Haloi presented on the various references of ecological thought found in ancient Indian writings, right from Vedas, epics, Puranas. He talks about various concepts like Panchabhutas and how it's very, it gets reflected in those writings. He basically he tried to show the ecological awareness of the ancient people from the sacred writings of India. So the next presenter was Garima Barua. She talked about Northeast India and how because of its difference from the rest of the India in terms of physiognomy, culture, language, and traditions of the people of this region, the idea of caste also is very complex and different, and it cannot be and she tries to argue that it cannot be compared to the stricter understanding in the rest of India as it's understood in the rest of India. So devolution as a concept in the context of Assam and Assamese literature. The next presenter was Sais S. Nayak Dalal. He argued the effectiveness of indigenous language knowledge systems in enabling interdependence and eco-sustenance in the rural villages of Goa, India. He states how till the late 90s, the villagers did not have any formal education, but were totally self-reliant on the basis of indigenous education. So he basically tried to talk about the advantages of indigenous education and how it's he talked about how there are various scholars. He talked about Gandhi as well, who advocated indigenous knowledge systems. So the last presenter was Sanjay Rometra. His paper is an interesting presentation on the negative impacts of globalization on indigenous communities. He argued while globalization may contribute towards positive social growth in relation to collaborating communities and its people, but it creates a demand, it creates an increasing demand on land and resources, and the brunt is mostly borne by indigenous communities. So through his paper, he tried to argue for the equilibrium needed to be maintained for optimum growth of the indigenous communities and conservation of the unique language and culture as well. So these were the presentations. So I open the floor for comments and questions. So I let me see the chat box. There are certain questions. So this is Henrika Zoko Lianto. He says, thanks so much for the very enriching presentation, Dr. Sais. It's for Sais. I am, okay, I would like to ask about the indigenous community. Are they a minor community in India? And do they live together with other common people or live in a remote rural area? So he says that he did not follow the beginning part of your presentation. So would you like to address the question?
Of
Hello?
course, I got the question. I'm reading it from the messages. Of course, the indigenous
I think the question
communities.
is for Sais.
Okay,
I think the question is for Sais Nayak Dalal.
Okay, fine.
Sais, Mr. Dalal, are you there? Okay, since he is not around, and there is a question for you as well, Mr. Rohmetra.
Yeah.
It's from Henrika Zoko Villantu as well. So he says, thanks so much for the presentation, Dr. Sanjay. I am Henrika Villantu from Indonesia. I have a question. How do the Indian government and people in general interact with the indigenous community? Do they have friendly and cooperative manners towards them?
Well, Dr. Henricos, as per my studies about the indigenous communities are concerned, especially in India, whatever literature I have read, whatever knowledge I have gained, I didn't find any very easy ways for indigenous communities to approach Indian government or the people. They basically have the lesser side of the life, in education, in health, and in other social setup. They have the lesser of the things, and naturally they have very bigger resources and meager approach, very lesser approach in the social setup. Accordingly, their say in the communities is a negligible one in a way I can express. And especially only these are the voluntary NGOs, not government organizations, who are really interesting and sincerely interested, and they are determined to raise their status, Adivasi status, indigenous community status. They come to play their role to help these communities only. And naturally, as a government, as a welfare state, Indian government is never left behind. They are doing their best to save these communities by enacting laws, by protecting their rights, and by protecting their language, everything. But the point which I raised is the globalization. Globalization is a natural growth of our development in a way, because life is not lived in isolation in these times. We have to collaborate to get the quality of the products and quantity of the product as well at the cheaper rates. For that sort of human greed, in a way, we collaborate, and for that we have a cost of land to be paid, cost of resources to be paid. And since the indigenous communities everywhere, like everywhere in the world, in India also, they are at the bottom of the social strata, they have to pay the real burn. and this is this is how they, they have the say in our society.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Oh,
your question.
Thank you.
oh, do we have any other questions or comments?
Ma'am, I have a question to Madan.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, it's just an observation, not direct question. Actually, he said he talked about the ecological awareness in ancient India by referring Vedas. In Vedic period, many animal sacrifices practiced, and the indigenous people affected by these ritualistic practices in the name of ecological awareness. So, shall we say that the sacred writings affected the indigenous people?
Okay, Dr. Halloy, would you like to take up the question? Please respond. Dr. Halloy, are you there? I don't see Dr. Halloy responding. So um, maybe we can wait for him. If he is, by the time he comes, then maybe he can respond. In the meanwhile, do we have any other questions?
Hi, ma'am. Hi, ma'am.
Yes.
Can I
Hello.
ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, this is a continuation of the previous question. How do the Indian government and people in general interact with indigenous community? This is not actually a question. This is my suggestion. So I
Okay.
have to Sanjay sir.
Mhm.
Sir,
Yeah.
I have read about Gayatri Spivak, Can the Subaltern Speak? I hopefully you read also.
Uh, uh,
Can the
Perhaps.
subaltern speak? Perhaps.
Okay.
Okay.
Perhaps not.
Okay.
Right.
The language used by the Gayatri Spivak is too hectic language. Eh? And she's saying that what subaltern people have their own right, but how can they understand that they have right? Even the literature, our Indian tradition, our books, all things are written in a very hectic language. Only the literature student or an educated student can understand their language. But a poor, uneducated people, how can they understand they have writing? This is my question. And we are here. We
Very
have a
interesting
discussion
question.
about here. We have indigenous studies about Adivasis, Dalits, outcast, polluted, everything. But how can they understand that we have a discussion about these things?
Right.
Yeah, in fact, you see, the persons who doesn't know their dialect or their language has the difficulty to understand and to understand their mental thinking and their approach towards life. Definitely, but the point is again, I was listening to the plenary session by Dr. Ganesh Devi, and he suggested from there, I think we have a very clear indication. You see, if I want to study Adivasis, I have to be all with my ears towards them. I have to I have to get the signals from their body language, if I can understand that dialect or their living style. That's a story in itself. Now the point is, the book you have, the reference you have given for the book, again, naturally, otherwise there is other no way to understand the book written by a Adivasi or in that dialect, rather than to understand their language first of all. But that's a very, sort of, in a way, I will say, if you pardon me, a narrow concept. Because if you really have the kind of knowledge of the background of the Adivasis or the indigenous people, it is not only limited to the Indian context. It can be seen through the wider global context even. You have to have a understanding, a real grassroots understanding of their living forms, of their how they understand the life itself. So it will be a very, academic approach to study the language and dialect and this scripts and all that, and to grasp the knowledge what they are giving in writing. But the greater knowledge is the understanding and the knowledge they give in practice, while you're living with them, or you're visiting them, and you are giving all, your attention to their lives. So I think that's the best approach.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your response, Mr. Nerutra. Any other questions? Any other comments? Is Dr. Sakhiya around? If nobody is asking, maybe I can ask a question or two from my side. Dr. Sakhiya around? Are you present? So
Yes,
I
I'm here.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Dr.
I was interested in. You talked about Javanese. You talked about the national language of Indonesia. So you talked about indigenous languages. It was very interesting paper. I was interested in knowing about the position of English as a language, because we as a place also is rich in indigenous languages, and because there are so many indigenous languages, so English stands as a means of communication. So
Yeah.
so
Thank you
many
so much. That's very
yeah.
critical question on your side. And you are right.
Okay.
Currently, if we see it from a critical perspective, from the language maintenance perspective, then English has served as a multiplier effect on the threat of this indigenous language lost. So the first factor is the national language, because it evades the position of the local language, and then English comes in its way with all its privilege and the economic benefits offered, and so on and
Right.
so forth. So
Mhm.
it magnifies the problem of this linguistic maintenance issue. Yeah, but currently in
Okay.
Indonesia, unlike in India, which
Mhm.
English is a second language,
Mhm.
in Indonesia, English is a foreign language, which means that it is only spoken in the educational environment, only in the English lessons, and also in specific uh, international offices, but it is not
Right.
spoken in the market or in other public spaces. Although the upper middle class would understand the language. Um,
Right.
so
Right.
maybe with this, it's only within that what is it, layer of the community that speaks the language. With this privileged position, um, the people, the community are more enticed to learn English rather than learning the indigenous language. So that's
Right.
another challenge
Right.
that's posed. Yep.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
If not,
Dr. Pratusha, I am seeing
yeah.
one question in the messages from Dr.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Prasaja. The question is, how do communities in India look after their indigenous practices in the middle invasion of digitalization of the lives and
Yes.
social changes, revolution? So, may I submit here that we have 104 billion, indigenous people in India. That comes around 8.6% of the total population. Now, the mobile concept, as far as India is concerned, the mobile concept is reaching to around 80, maybe 80% in India. I may be wrong, but the figure is not, very much accurate with me. So, but the point is, where is the educational level of indigenous people? We have some examples like Birsa Munda. We have some example like Abe Kaka having degrees. But do all the indigenous people are literate? Do all the indigenous people have the access to electricity? Do all the people in India of indigenous community even have the access to the proper drinking water? Do they have? That's a matter of study again. As per the data goes, there has been displacement of these people from the fertile lands to the other side of the forest. They have been thrown out from their forests. They have been pushed back, or they have been forced to leave their homes just because of these economic forces which are so huge and powerful that these communities are nothing in front of them. Now when they don't have even the sources to live properly in their own homelands, the dent of this digitalization, I don't find much dent in their lives, because this needs resources. Digitalization doesn't come free of cost. A mobile costs something, data costs something. So the concept of digitalization, although I may submit to Mr. Agung Prasja from Indonesia, that we don't, at least I couldn't find any, that data about the digitalization of indigenous people in India. But I will, since I am interested in this topic, so I will try to get it. But at the moment, I don't have. But taking the larger picture into the view, I don't find any much done in their lives because of digitalization in the world. And this is special with reference to India. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. I see you are getting a lot of questions. That means
Yeah, there's
a
one
lot
more
of
question.
interest you have.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
there's
your paper was interesting. Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah.
Is Dr. Haloy around? Um, uh, Dr. Haloy, there was a question from one of the audience members. So still not around. Yeah, anyways, so I have a question to if I see a little bit of time left, so let me ask a question to Saises Nayak Dalal. Are you there? Mr. Dalal, are you around? Okay, I guess I don't know what's happening, but the presenters are not around. Anyways, so let me wind up the discussion then. The panel was very interesting, and I thank the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity to chair the session. So I now officially hand over the session to the organizers. Thank you so much.